I'm sure if he could go back in time, he would change the way he presented himself.
They have to set an example, really, the royal family, and everybody looks up to them.
He has a bit of a track record, and Mr. Epstein was certainly no treat.
I think it's good that, everyone's waking up to the fact that, there's some nefarious activity going on.
I think it's going to have lasting impact on the reputation of the royal family.
Some reaction from Canada and the UK to the Crown's handling of Prince Andrew's connections to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. What a change. A year ago, the biggest royal controversy was whether Meghan Markle's wedding dress was too plain for a duchess. People all over the world were enthralled. Babies followed, the royal brand was thriving, the palace seemed in control. But now, everybody's talking about this interview.
Witnesses say they saw many young girls coming and going at the time. There is video footage of Epstein accompanied by young girls. And you were there, staying in his house, catching up with friends.
If they were, then I wasn't a party to any of that.
But you were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
Instead of that interview limiting the damage, it made things worse for him and engulfed the entire royal family. The allegations came from this woman, Virginia Giuffre, who says Epstein recruited her as a sex slave for the prince when she was only 17. The prince denied that, but the media called his interview a car crash, cringeworthy, a disaster, with one headline wrapping it up like this: "I'm sorry, Mummy," it read. Soon after, Prince Andrew was essentially deroyaled. He was cast out, banished from his royal duties. So you likely won't see him in any of these family photo ops anymore. He's even been disinvited from this week's gala dinner at Buckingham Palace for NATO leaders like Donald Trump. It's all created such an uproar. Several British tabloids are reporting that the Queen is getting ready to step aside too when she turns 95 in about a year and a half. And on Monday, the BBC will add fuel to the fire, running another big interview with the woman in that picture. Here's the promo they put out this week.
It was a really scary time in my life. He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth.
Joining me now from London is the royal editor for Vanity Fair, Katie Nichol. So, Katie, the BBC is set to air this big interview. You've got lots of sources in the palace. Are they nervous about it?
Yes, I think they are probably very nervous at the palace. I think there is a feeling that the Andrew interview didn't go the way anyone wanted it to. I think probably most of the press officers were caught quite on the hoof about that. I don't think anyone really knew that it was going ahead. I think when it aired, it was, they had really only been given very short notice before that programme aired. So there was an element of surprise to that, and of course a huge amount of damage limitation in the days that followed that programme going out. They will be bracing themselves, I would imagine, for the very worst. How much worse can it get for Prince Andrew? Some might say. Well, the truth is it could get worse. So listen, they've got the best communications teams, they've got the best lawyers in the country. I think it's all systems go, and we're ready for the worst that she might possibly fling.
We're hearing that Prince Charles was horrified by his brother's interview. What did you hear?
Yes, I heard the same. My sources said that Charles was, apoplectic actually was the word that was used to me. I think Charles has had a pretty strained relationship with his brother at points. I was told that he was incredulous when Andrew was photographed with Jeffrey Epstein back in 2011, I think it was, in Central Park, and couldn't understand, why his brother was still in contact with this man. Charles was very against the friendship from the start. I think he feels his brother's made some very bad decisions, and I think he was very, very angry that what was a really important tour of New Zealand was completely overshadowed.
And now there are these reports that Prince Charles is going to be taking on more responsibilities from the Queen. What are you hearing on that from the palace?
Yes, I think we're seeing Charles carry out more. But, this prickles the palace because they really strongly reject any suggestion that the Queen is scaling back or stepping down. And there's a lot of rumour and speculation, certainly over here in the UK and the tabloid press, that possibly at the age of 95, the Queen may be considering handing over the reins to Charles. But that is something that the palace are denying to me.
The royals, they've survived a lot of scandals over the years, but now Prince Andrew is being accused of being a sex offender. Can they fix this? Can they survive this?
I mean, you're right. The royals have gone through a number of turbulent times over the years, and they've weathered many scandals, and they've always come out and emerged, I think, triumphant at the end of the day. I think we have yet to see where this is going to go, but, you know, Fergie, I'm thinking of the Fergie and the toe-sucking days and the divorces, and, you know, actually all of that, okay, it was great tabloid fodder, but, you know, this is a criminal investigation. This feels like a very different royal scandal. Certainly I've never covered anything like this in my nearly 20-year-long career.
Katie Nichol, thank you so much. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Katie Nichol of Vanity Fair. This scandal, of course, has been years in the making. Giuffre claims the police, the royals, and the media have been burying her allegations. And here's the thing, a video leaked earlier this month suggests that could have actually happened. Here's ABC News anchor Amy Robach saying the network killed her interview with Giuffre back in 2015.
The palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. I had it all 3 years ago.
Robach has said since that she was caught in a private moment of frustration there and that the interview didn't air because it wasn't up to ABC's editorial standards. But now, of course, Giuffre is telling her story, and this time it will be on the BBC. Joining me now is royal historian Robert Lacey. He's written several books about the Queen. Robert, you've written so much about the Queen. The Crown is a constitutional monarchy, which means that it lives and dies by public opinion. How much of the responsibility for all of this falls on the Queen?
Well, Wendy, you've sort of hit right on the key of it. I mean, as people think about this, how could it be that for now nearly 60 years, Andrew's coming up to 60 next year, this creature has been nurtured in the royal family who displaying, I mean, it was like listening to somebody from the Ancien Regime of before the French Revolution, striding down the corridors of Buckingham Palace. Who gave him permission to, I mean, there's one school of thought that says if he'd only done this interview at home, he might have got away with it. But to parade in Buckingham Palace, to command all the prestige of the monarchy for his point of view, made it all worse. It seems pretty clear now the Queen didn't really know what was going on. A lot of people are saying, well, it's clearly sad that Prince Philip is not around. If Prince Philip had been around, he'd never have allowed it. But the Queen is known to be particularly indulgent to Andrew and also to Edward, her second family, with whom she felt she could bond more closely as a mother. The questions arising, though, hasn't Andrew been indulged too much? Did the Queen herself show a lack of judgment in letting her son off the hook so much? It's pretty clear that it was Prince Charles coming back from his tour of the Far East, which of course was totally overshadowed by what his brother had done, who actually stepped in and insisted that Andrew had to go.
In the past, the royals have been able to manage scandals. They've been kind of ruthless in some situations. Have they managed this? Can they come back from this?
Well, ruthless is a good word there, Wendy. I mean, yes, Charles in particular acted very quickly. But well, it raises big questions for the future. Already in Australia, the anti-monarchist movement has reared its head again and said, do we want these sort of people representing us? Canada will have to make its own decisions about that. It shows a fragility for the monarchy, certainly in Britain, and one wonders in its 15 Commonwealth realms around the world. Just how long the monarchy will last.
You have been quoted as saying that this is the beginning of a transition from one reign to another, from the Queen to Charles. Is that what we're seeing?
I think when historians look back on what happened in the last few days, they will see Prince Charles's intervention as being decisive and the moment when he really stepped in and took charge of a ship that was losing its way. The Queen is now in her 90s. Prince Philip is ailing. There is a strong argument, certainly held by people around Prince Charles, that a regency should now be established. And Prince Charles should be brought more into the picture. Maybe this is the sort of thing we're going to be hearing about in the weeks ahead.
Will the public like that, if that's so important in this?
So much of public opinion and feeling in all of this rests on the deep affection and respect for the Queen herself. But the Queen is sadly mortal. And whatever the strength of that affection, there's an issue ahead. Can that affection, can that loyalty be transferred to the new generation? Well, one of the new generation has faltered and fallen. And the firm, as we call it, the firm will be looking pretty depleted in terms of personnel.